Hello, welcome to another edition of Hobby News Daily. I'm still Danny Black, but today for our LCS spotlight, the Sports Card Shop and Rex Gocher. How you doing, Rex?
I'm great. Thanks, Danny.
Was I anywhere close on the last name?
You were perfect, actually. Most people get it wrong, but you got it perfect, right on.
Well, there might be a commercial that you run with. Is it Alan Page right now?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yep. And so when you have celebrities that in your life and they're talking about you, I just follow their lead.
Yeah. Interesting. Side note on Alan Pinkett. So, Alan Pinkett and
Pinkett,
I,
right? I'm
so
sorry. Yeah.
we are in Alan Pinkett, for those who don't know, was a former NFL running back, a superstar at Notre Dame, which is not far from our shops. He currently resides in Valparaiso, Indiana. But I had a personal connection with Alan because we grew up in the same town, Sterling, Virginia, and we played football against each other in high school for all 4 years that we were there. We were crosstown rivals, so I knew Alan from way back, and it just so happens that he actually lives in Valparaiso, Indiana now, which is where one of our shops are located. So small world.
Small world. I'm in Baltimore, so you were right down the street.
Yeah, not too far.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to put this up here because you already gave away part of it. Is you have two locations, uh, Valparaiso, Indiana, New Buffalo, Michigan. Uh, love that logo, by the way.
Thank you.
Um, and so, talk about how you opened your first store. What got you, even thinking about doing an LCS, and when that was.
So about 5 years ago, I'm not the greatest with dates, so that's a rough estimate, I think. But um, probably going back a little bit more, like 6 or 7 years ago, Owen, our youngest son, got interested in baseball cards, and Tina and I, that's my wife, we've been in the retail business for most of our adult careers. We've been in some form of retail. So we had currently had other retail businesses. And when Owen got interested in sports cards, specifically baseball cards in the beginning, um, we wanted to, foster that hobby with him because it looked like he was having fun. He was into playing baseball. He was into watching baseball. And, he got into the cards. And then we started taking him to shows and some shops, and he started trading stuff and buying and selling stuff. And we saw that there was, something going on with cards at that time that was, interesting to us from a retail perspective. Tina and I are not really collectors per se. I have a small collection of cards, but Owen's really the collector. And so we encouraged him to really kind of use the opportunity to learn about business. And we said, maybe if you're going to be doing this buying and selling and trading, maybe you should open an eBay store. So he and his brother Max, his older brother Max, did just that with our help. And so they opened an eBay store and they started having some success with that. Also had gained some traction on some Facebook groups. And then during the pandemic, Max got inspired by Project 2020 and started doing some art and selling art cards. And we had at that time some retail space. We have been looking for retail space, I should say, for a card shop because we thought this would be a great family business for us to do. And during the pandemic, when one of our other businesses got shut down for a few months, we said, "Look, we're going to retool this space and utilize it to open a card shop." And that's what we did in New Buffalo. We opened first shot was probably about 700 square feet, not very big. Um, it took off, and we expanded, twice more in the following 2 years in
Wow.
that shop. And then in June of last year, we opened the shop in Valparaiso, Indiana.
Um, First of all, your store, which I've been to, is immaculate, um, and it shows you have a retail background.
Thanks,
With,
brother.
with,
And
with
that's all Tina, by the way. That's all her touch.
okay, well now we're being honest. So,
Yeah, that's all.
uh, are your kids still in school, or did you have
Yeah,
them drop out?
no, they're still at school. So they work the shops when they're not, when they have the time. Uh, More so in the summer, obviously, because they're not in school. But when they're in school, they're also involved in sports. Owen plays baseball. Max plays basketball and golf. So they've got their extracurricular activities as well as schoolwork, and then of course they've got their friends and they're chasing girls and all that other stuff too. So normal teenage stuff.
I have three kids, so I get that. I also get that it's hard to run an LCS. So I've got some questions for you.
Sure.
You're either crazy genius or just crazy. I'm not sure. But I love LCS. If I go anywhere in the country, my family knows I'm gonna sidestep and find something to see.
Yeah, there's a lot of great shops around the country for sure.
You cover kind of like a tri-state area, don't you?
Yeah,
Between your stores. So give people a sense of, yeah, because I know like Michigan specifically, you're almost right near the border.
right.
Um,
So our
yeah,
our locations are really, if you think about Northwest Indiana, which is where Valparaiso is, it's on the same time zone, central time zone as Chicago, and as such is treated kind of like a Chicago suburb in a lot of ways. It's the only part of Indiana that it's on the central time zone and it's connected to Chicago. The sports fans are largely Chicago based with some crossover into Indianapolis based teams. We're talking about pro sports, of course.
sure.
Um, and then on the Michigan side, which is probably about 45 to 50 minutes away from Valparaiso, it is a resort community. It is the first exit in Michigan when you're coming out of Indiana, headed up to the shores of Lake Michigan. There, it's a beach town. It's right on the beach. It is literally one of the hottest vacation spots for people coming out of Chicago. Weekend vacations. To their second homes on the lake, rental properties on the lake, in and around the lake. And it's very much becoming even a larger tourist town now because there is a casino there. It's a very small town in terms of year-round population, but there's a casino there that drives a lot of traffic to the city. Breweries, wineries have been big there for the last few years, which attract a lot of tourists as well. And most recently, the legalization of marijuana dispensaries. There are going to be about 15 of them popping up in New Buffalo over the course of the next 2 years. So we'll see what that brings.
Well, Maryland's had it, and I will say, pretty much unnoticed around town. Um, so I'm curious because you mentioned being near Chicago.
Yeah.
Um, how far of a drive from the National were you last year?
It takes me probably from New Buffalo about an hour and a half to get there.
Okay, that's a
Just
subtle hint
depends
to
on
everybody.
traffic.
I was about to say that's a subtle hint to everybody for next year and the year after when you go to Chicago. Uh, feel free to definitely stop by.
Yeah, it's right along. I mean, especially if you're on 94. I mean, it's literally right off. New Buffalo's the first exit in Michigan off 94, so we're easily found from there.
So let's talk about the fun stuff. Wax versus singles. What sells?
All of it. The top sellers for us in both stores, I would, I mean, I haven't looked at this month, but just historically, football wax, and then over the course of the last year, basketball wax, and then baseball wax, in that order. But it's interesting because we do a lot of lower end singles here, and we're talking everything from dime boxes to um, you know, 50, $100 cards. I mean, those are not exactly low end, but um, we don't sell a ton of high end cards in the shop. Most of our singles are in the $1 to $50 range, and we
Sure.
do a ton of volume with those. And you sort of nickel and dime your way through the day with that stuff. You get a $20 sale here, you get a $300 sale here. It's all singles. But then you look at the end of the month and you look at the categories, and singles are consistently number two or three categories right behind which either wax category is hot for that month. So singles are extremely important in both of our shops.
I've heard similar comments from people at both at shows and in stores about value boxes, single boxes, doing very well.
Yeah.
Consistently.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
recently retooled our pricing structure for singles in that realm, in that price range that I was talking about, and also our presentation. And we put everything by team in the three main sports. When I say main sports, and I'm sure that'll probably offend some people, and I apologize, but for us, it's football, basketball, baseball. Those are the single categories that we really sell. We don't do a ton of hockey. We don't do a lot of soccer or tennis or golf or some of the other sports in terms of singles. It's all really driven by those three sports, and it's all done by team. Except for there are dime boxes that are really dive boxes, and those are really just sorted by sport. And we also give a lot of that away with our report card program for kids. So that's they can come in and pick cards out of that when they show a good report card.
Oh, that's a cool. Just real quick, what do they have to do?
Really, just basically show us a good report card, and they get to pick 10 cards out of the boxes. So
That's
as long as they're not failing anything. I mean, I guess it's never happened, but if
I was
somebody
about to say,
came
have you
in,
ever turned a kid down and been like,
no,
you gotta work on math. We'll see you next semester.
I haven't, but I guess anything could happen. I've yet to see really anything below a B, really, in any of the report cards that we've seen so far. So a lot of good students around here, which is good news.
That's very funny. Do turn somebody away? Make sure you let me know. I want
Yeah,
the
you're
details on that.
sorry, you're flunking algebra. No cards for you today.
Right, the card Nazi. Wax. Everybody I talk to says the same thing. The big three dominate. Is that your experience, and how does wax typically work for you? Is it just new releases take a chunk, and then allocation after that, or is it spread pretty evenly?
So we have direct accounts with all the major card makers. So we buy direct from Topps, direct from Panini, and direct from Upper Deck. Um, so we'll occasionally do rebuys, but realistically, it's not a profitable way to do business. I mean, you sort of dollar cost average in some hot releases if you need to really, put the product back on the shelves if the customers are demanding it. But new release, in our experience, new releases do drive traffic into the stores. But after a period of time, a lot of the new releases, customers lose interest in those after a period of time. And there are exceptions, of course, but um, they're sort of in and out of a product within, I don't know, 30 to 45 days a lot of times. Um, so if we were looking to buy product um, on a regular basis, we're really focused on the new releases as they come out. And if we sell out quickly, we do have the opportunity through Fanatic / Tops to rebuy almost everything we're offered a rebuy on, but obviously at a higher price. Um, with Panini Direct, that's rare. It does happen, but it's not as regular. So there are some opportunities. And then on the other side of things, the wax that's changed and is changing and evolving now kind of in front of our eyes is that what's typically been reserved for retail stores like Target and Walmart. We're talking about blaster boxes, value boxes,
Mm-hmm.
mega boxes, even fat packs. We're now buying a lot of that directly from Tops and or Panini.
You don't have to go to a Target in the middle of the night and get in line.
No, we never really did much of that, but we did have a distributor. Well, we still do have a distributor. One of the distributors that we use for supplies, Ultra Pro, is also a distributor of that retail product.
Okay.
So we've gotten blasters and mega boxes and fat packs of Panini and Tops from them in the past. Although that looks like that relationship with Tops is probably going to go away completely.
Were you at the Tops conference?
Yep.
Thoughts, reactions?
I It was informative. I liked the seeing all the new stuff that they were doing. That to me was the best part of it. Um, and it's great to really kind of put faces with names. I mean, I was able to meet Michael Rubin and Michael Mahan face to face for the first time, and had an interesting conversation with the two of them. They were very interested to know, sales numbers. They were
Sure.
very driven. They wanted to know, how much we were going to do this year between the two shops, and how fast did we think we were going to sell through our Bowman allocation, et cetera. So they're very, very keyed into the numbers. One of the things that Michael Rubin said to me, and he echoed it on stage too, after he said it to me individually, he said, one of the things that I love about being in a place like this is that you guys are all like me in that you're entrepreneurs. And he said, I was never, he, in his words, I was never good at anything other than being an entrepreneur. He goes, I was a terrible student, I was a terrible athlete, but I was good at building businesses. And that's what you guys are all doing. And so I see myself in a lot of you guys, and that's why I love being here with you. So that's an interesting take that, I hadn't really heard him talk about before. So that was interesting. And of course, there are a lot of challenges, I think, with some LCSs with the Tops conference, in that Tops is going to, or is developing, a scoring system for their direct accounts that will impact allocations, both positively and negatively. It doesn't really impact us in any way that I can see, because it's really all about making sure that your shop is up to date from a presentation standpoint, making sure you have a workable POS system
Yep.
that could track sales and monitor inventory, making sure that you're engaged with your community. Some of this stuff I'm not sure how they're going to measure. It's a little subjective, but
It sounds like your report card system, just at a different scale.
it does. But I don't know. Again, I mean, so one of the categories that they're going to grade us on is social media presence.
Yeah.
Now we're very active on social media. We post a lot, we share a lot. I mean, we're pretty active almost daily on social media. But we don't have 750,000 followers. So I don't know how they're going to look at that.
Right.
But either way, it doesn't bother me or concern me in any way. I mean, I know that they're looking to partner with shops that represent their brand well. And they showed some examples of shops that they thought did that. And then they showed some photos of shops that they thought were not doing that. And really they're not looking for a cookie cutter operation. In other words, I don't think they want all stores to look the same. I mean, we're all individual companies. And as Ruben pointed out, we're all entrepreneurs.
Right.
So there's going to be a lot of differences, regionally, and just, from a taste standpoint or design standpoint. Every store, should look differently, in my opinion. I don't think they should all look the same.
Well, I mean, you talked about it earlier on what teams, who roots for what teams in every area.
Yeah.
That alone changes the stores.
Yeah. But there are some basic standards I think that they want you to show. And I don't know. We'll see what happens. They have one thing that they have now, and they had it for a while, but they didn't have previously. Probably it's been in place, I don't know, maybe 6 months or more. They have regional Tops reps now. So our rep is based out of Chicago, and he covers the entire Midwest. So he'll be the one that does that stuff. And he's like our main contact, in the Top/Fanatics organization.
Do you have any idea how many LCSs are part of this?
I've heard various numbers. So 600 or so, I think.
That's what I heard.
Are the direct shops. Now, when we first became a shop, there were only about 200, maybe less than 300, I think was the number that Kevin, who was the former director, had told me. And they've doubled that. They've more than doubled that since that time. Not only that, they've also added direct breaker accounts. So they're selling direct to breakers now, and they've been doing that for a bit. I think a lot of those guys are on Fanatics Live too. I don't know that all of them are, but there are, and there were at the conference quite a few breakers. And then there are, hybrids, which they kind of consider if you're a shop and you also have a braking operation, they consider you a hybrid. So you do both.
From
We're not a hybrid. We don't do any braking.
of cards, but every so often just a glass here.
Right. Sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
One of the things that I heard was that the scoring system is not something that's going to be in stone for years to come. That it's going to adapt. That the social interaction is going to adapt. That wouldn't surprise me if they worked out some of the wrinkles and kinks moving forward. Like you said, the social engagement. I understand the theory behind it, but is it enforceable? Are they going to tell you you're not going to get Bowman because you didn't tweet yesterday?
All right, that I don't know. I mean, they do encourage us to share their stuff, and I mean that's all part of it. I think that's what's driving is they want and realistically, Danny, I mean, it's a partnership. I mean, you take a look at what Fanatics is doing from a marketing standpoint and helping to drive traffic to shops. It's really, at least it's, as long as we've been done, it's really rare that other companies have done it. Now, Panini has a nice program with the Player of the Day program, um, which drives people into shops, and we promote that heavily. And of course, you know, Upper Deck has some things that they do to support shops, even with in terms of shared expenses for remodeling and opening new shops. So it's not a new concept, but when you think about like the buyback, the Topps Chrome buyback program, I mean that was a huge cash infusion for shops that participated. And one of the interesting things that they mentioned at the conference was that they did not have 100% participation for all their direct shops. And that was an interesting number to me too, because they were only talking about direct shops. And the Topps buyback program is not exclusive to direct accounts. So you do not have to be a direct account to participate in the buyback program, which is unusual, but I understand it. I mean, they want to spread that out to as many shops as possible. But the reality of it is it's free money for a shop. It's paperwork and shipping some cards, but holy smokes, I mean it's just a great program to get, depending on how active you are with it. I mean, you could get thousands and tens of thousands of dollars in buybacks through these programs. I mean, it's just free margin for your shop. I don't understand why a shop would choose not to do it.
Well, that might lead me to my next question. From the Topps conference, what was the kind of the general vibe moving forward? What was it? And listen, we both know some people that own other shops, and I've heard positive reactions in general from people I've talked to. But for the next year, do you feel supported? Do you feel like it's still a feeling out period for Fanatics? I know they said they wanted to go through a little bit of a transition before they did anything major. And now I think they're starting to get in gear a little bit. Is that the feeling? How would you describe it?
Yeah, I mean, one thing I will say, Danny, is this. So, as far as the whole report card thing and so forth, again, it doesn't apply to us. There's a lot of focus on that, and I understand why there is. But to me, it was almost a waste of time.
Right.
Because it does. I mean, these are things that we're already doing. And I suppose I could be shocked, when our rep comes in and says something different, if he sees things differently. If he does, we'll listen to him and, hear him out and see what he has to say. But, as far as their standards go, I don't see there's any issue for us. And the last thing that I would say about that whole thing is that as an entrepreneur, and one of the reasons why I am an entrepreneur and I don't work for corporations anymore, is that inherently I don't like being told what I have to do. So that's one of the things of being a business owner. That's a benefit of being a business owner. There are a lot of, other cons to being a business owner, but that's one of the best ones. So inherently, if you have that kind of an attitude, some of that stuff could rub you the wrong way, and it does. But I also look at the bigger picture and I say, I understand what they're doing. They're not really talking to me here. But they have to address it globally because there are shops out there that don't fit the model of what they want to represent their brand. So I understand it.
Yeah. I can tell you in my area, it is very easy to tell which stores care and which ones are just turning on the lights and sitting behind the case all day.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that complicated to figure out. Like you said, you're either a store that has a POS system
Right.
and can keep it clean and turn on white lights, or you have yellow lights. It's all cash, and there's no tracking of anything.
Yeah, I think they don't want the whole I don't know.
Dusty
I say
cave.
at the garage sale or
Yeah,
yard sale type shops. That's not what they're looking to do.
and
They
that's
want
fair.
real businesses.
And to give them credit, they're trying to form a brand in an industry that they didn't exist in a couple of years ago.
Yeah. Well, I told Michael Rubin, I said, I see a lot of parallels in what you're doing to what I saw at Nike when I was there, when I worked at Nike. So at one point, Nike, well, I guess they really still are. Nike is a designer, they're a
Yep.
manufacturer, they're a wholesale distributor, they're a retailer, and then they're also an outlet retailer.
Yep.
They're all of those things. Oh, well, an online retailer as well. So let's not forget about that one because that's big. So they are all of those things, and at this time, those um, those distribution models all peacefully coexist. Now it has evolved over time. I will say that in Nike, one of the things that they did is they eventually started to weed out a lot of the little mom and pop shops that helped them grow their business from Bill Bowerman's garage and a one waffle maker into the global entity that it is today. A lot of those mom and pop shops fell by the wayside because Nike no longer sells to them. And I don't know who they sell to now other than some of the majors like Dick's Sporting Goods and some of the other big ones. But I'd be surprised if a lot of the little dusty old, shoe stores carry Nike products now. And I see that's kind of what Fanatics can do and kind of the direction that they're moving in.
And I will say, I do think there are different niches in the hobby, and LCSs have a right to represent the niche they want to represent.
Right.
And like you said, as an entrepreneur, that's the freedom you get. If
Yeah.
if you want to be, a high dollar, a sale or two a week, I guess that's one model I've seen, but
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the one that most people are looking for an in-store experience.
Yeah, I think that the other thing, so people, I think, are thinking, well, Fanatics will eventually have their own LCSs, and I think they probably will um, at some point. I mean, I don't see why they wouldn't. My issue with that is, and being again in retail for a long time, it's very hard to train um, and empower associates down to the level that you would need to really have them if they're going to be doing actively, or they're going to be actively buying, selling, and trading on your behalf,
Yes.
single cards. So I mean, if you had, I suppose in each shop, if you were to chain, forget about Fanatics, for example. Let's think about Dan Fleischman, for example. It'd be interesting to know how he empowers and trains those associates in those stores to deal with singles. And having said that, I don't know if they do a lot of singles business. I know they have a big breaking operation and so forth, but I'd be interested to see how that works for him because those decisions that are made on a daily basis really impact your margins and ultimately your bottom line. So you have to have people that are qualified and trustworthy to do that on your behalf. And I think that would be tough to do um, to scale on a very large level. I think it'd be very tough to do. I mean, if you look at Rob over at Burbank Cards, he's probably the best example of having people do that. But he's got a team of people that he's trained specifically to do that. And there are only, I don't know how many of them there are. I think maybe there are two or three um, associates in his store that can actually do that. So it's not something that, a $12 an hour associate can do in every shop. I don't think.
Just to bring everything full circle, what are you seeing for your stores? What are you looking for the upcoming year?
Well, one of the things, again, going back to the regional thing, football product is going to be insane here this year because of the two top draft the draft picks from the Bears.
This is why I like talking to people in different parts of the country. That's a very fascinating thought for you.
Yeah, it's going to be so. And if you think about it too, you've got collegiate product now from various manufacturers, and now you're going to have pro product from various manufacturers. Some of it's licensed, some of it's not. The bottom line is there's going to be something there for almost everybody. And maybe it's not. And again, I know collectors really like licensed rookie autograph cards in their wax. I mean, that's one of the things that drives wax. But there are gonna have alternatives for those exclusive signers that are with Fanatics now that aren't signing with Panini. Even though there aren't autographs in those products, they're going to be able to get them through the Topps products. And one of the things that I will say about the conference that I was impressed by was the design of those non-licensed cards that they previewed. And again, so I'm not a hardcore collector, but I didn't miss the logos at all. I thought they did a really nice job with those. And really, the larger point I'm trying to make here is that I'm encouraged about non-licensed cards possibilities from all makers going forward. So this makes me believe that Leaf can continue to be relevant, and Panini can also continue to be relevant, long after they lose the licenses, because they have upped the game, and I think that seeing those previews, I know that something better can be done than what has traditionally been done in non-licensed. So that's encouraging to me.
And I'll just kind of wrap that thought up with, I think that there's a lot of vocal collectors that don't like pajama cards or non-licensed cards. But I'll tell you, my sons, they care about the player. They care about whether if they can afford an autograph by any chance. That to them is cool. They don't say, "I hope I can afford the jersey."
That's an excellent point, because my sons are the same way. They're in even their rooting interest, Danny. They rarely, I mean, they don't even have favorite teams. I mean, I guess Owen kind of likes the Bears and the Cubs, but mainly they both like certain players.
Mm-hmm.
So, like in basketball, Max was a huge fan of college kids, Cassius Winston at one point, because we went to see him play in a game, and so he was huge fan of Cassius Winston, and then now he's a huge fan of Halliburton. And he has no real connection to the Pacers or anything like that. He just likes Halliburton's game. And same thing with Owen. Owen's a huge Cubs fan in a lot of ways, because that's who we get to see on TV. But he collects Luis Robert because he's the center fielder. He plays center field. Well, he plays all outfield. He loves to play baseball, and he loves that he can do everything. So it's interesting the way that kids approach it compared to when I was their age.
Yeah, and it's one of the reasons that I think, to your point, the Topps Wembanyama card that they showed, was a very good looking card.
It really was, yeah.
Yeah, and as somebody who typically rarely do I have a strong opinion on the look of a card. I'll be honest with you. Rarely am I moved one way or the other. I thought it was a very good looking card, and there's not a question in my mind. My sons wouldn't even notice the logo if I didn't point it out to them.
Yeah, I mean, it's a far cry from the airbrushed pure white hats that we've seen in the past, and I mean those are pretty wild looking. But yeah, I think as long as companies can continue to do high quality stuff like that, they can have a place in the card business.
So, all right, Rex. So we're selling more singles. We have a positive future with Fanatics and Topps. Leaf and Panini are signing athletes left and right, and it looks like they're gonna, maybe step up their game. It sounds like we're in for a full hobby soap opera of a good year.
I think so. I mean, I think the next several years will be interesting to watch, and I do. I mean, there's just a growing community here in both of our shops. We continue to meet and greet and interact with new collectors every single day. I mean, we see it every single day, every single week. Somebody that heard about us, or even people that didn't know we were here, discovering us for the first time. And of course, in New Buffalo, with people that are traveling, the New Buffalo not only draws people from the Chicago area, but literally people from all over the world. We get people in the shop visiting that area from Australia, England, Europe, the Middle East. I mean, it's really a global destination in many ways, which is surprising, but we see it.
Very cool. Once again, where can people find the stores, and then how can they find your social media and everything else?
So Instagram at _ sports card shop, and the name of our shops are literally the Sports Card Shop. And you can find us on Twitter as well. You can find us on Facebook. And our shops are in Valparaiso, Indiana, downtown, and in New Buffalo, Michigan.
Oh, Rex, as a friend and a sponsor of Hobby News Daily, I want to thank you for your support always from the beginning. Guys, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the man I'm talking to at the very beginning. So,
oh, you're welcome, Danny. I mean, I'm excited about the growth of Hobby News Daily. It's an excellent outlet for people to get their hobby news. If you haven't checked it out yet, make sure you do it on the daily. There's a lot of great writers there, a lot of great stories.
thank you. All right, to everybody else, appreciate you watching. Rex, I totally lied. We went well over. You and I need to book a double episode next time.
All right.
I think we're two guys who know how to talk a little bit.
You got it.
All right. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Check out the Sports Card Shop. See you later.